General Hospital spoilers reveal that the shocking secret about Michael being the biological father of the child Sasha is carrying has finally been exposed. And it immediately thrusts both of them into the heart of a new crisis storm in Port Charles. What was once thought to be permanently hidden is now the starting point for a series of uncontrollable consequences. Michael, who had tried to maintain distance and respect Sasha's choices, is now forced to confront the truth and all the responsibilities that come with it. What was already a complicated story now becomes more chaotic than ever when the identity of the child's biological father is revealed amidst the most intense moment in the battle for custody of Wiley and Amelia. One of the most noticeable aspects of the current situation is the reversal of the power dynamics between the individuals involved. Michael, who had once taken a firm stance, is now forced to reconsider all his choices. The careful calculations he had made to protect his image and position in the eyes of the court must now be entirely adjusted to respond to the rising public wave. The truth about the child is not only a personal shock but also a powerful blow to the legal argument he had meticulously built, causing everything to begin to unravel. Sasha, on the other hand, is also going through a chaotic state. The story she and Jason had created about their fake father-child relationship is no longer a secret. The public's trust, the trust of her family, and even her trust in herself are being tested. The exposure of the secret not only subjects her to heavy criticism but also forces her to make new decisions, this time real decisions. No longer able to hide behind a pre-written script. All of this is pushing Michael and Sasha into a confrontation with their past, forcing them to set aside all the pain to find a common path for the child they are about to bring into the world. Both understand that without a new agreement on how to face the future, everything will spiral out of control. But as they sit down together to discuss and untangle the knot, old emotions resurface, making the line between responsibility, love, and forgiveness more fragile than ever. This story is no longer just about Michael and Sasha. Willow, Jason, Carly, and the court are all watching, evaluating, and preparing to make judgments that will have long-term consequences for their future. Meanwhile, Port Charles's public opinion is rising in a wave of fierce debate. Some support Michael stepping forward to take responsibility and try to rebuild with Sasha, while others believe the behavior of hiding and manipulating information from both of them is unforgivable, especially when it affects the two other children involved in the custody battle. What was once considered a plan, a strategic calculation, has now been replaced by a chaotic chain reaction. Michael and Sasha are no longer in control, they are being pulled into the vortex they created, and every misstep now risks sparking an even greater disaster. They must choose. Either fix their mistakes together and restore stability or accept that this nightmare will sweep everything away, including the family they might have had a chance to build from the start if fear and lies hadn't clouded their judgment. The secret about the child Sasha is carrying is not just a private truth exposed but a blow powerful enough to dismantle the entire legal strategy Michael has painstakingly built over time to gain custody of Wiley and Amelia. The story that was once wrapped in silence is now the focal point of attack from all sides. In the eyes of the court, Michael's concealment of his true role and his relationship with Sasha and the existence of the child growing inside her could be seen as deliberate deceit, a behavior not fitting for someone seeking to be entrusted with the custody of two children who have already suffered from family upheaval. No one in Port Charles could have expected that Michael, who had always been highly regarded for his morals and responsibility, would become embroiled in such a serious scandal. He had once been the symbol of the devoted father, the strong and righteous man, but that image is slowly cracking as the truth about Sasha and the child is revealed. Those opposing in the custody trial, particularly the lawyers representing Willow, will likely seize this opportunity to attack Michael, turning his mistake into evidence of a lack of transparency, thereby shaking his chances of winning the legal battle. And as the world around him crumbles because of the truth that can no longer be hidden, Michael himself is falling into an emotional turmoil like never before. He cannot deny that deep within his soul, there has always been an enduring feeling for Sasha. She is not just a woman who once passed through his life, but a central figure in a painful and unforgettable chapter of his memories, when they both faced loss, the death of the son they once had, and an unspeakable pain. Now, faced with the reality that Sasha is carrying his child, the emotions that had been buried are resurfacing, intense, vivid, and haunting. Michael knows that if he openly returns to Sasha now, he will face criticism not only from the public but also from his loved ones. Carly will doubt his decision. Willow will feel betrayed. Jason, who once helped Sasha create the fake father-child story, will also find himself in a difficult position. But despite being in the midst of these delicate boundaries, Michael feels one thing is clear: his feelings for Sasha are real. And the child in her womb is not just a responsibility but an opportunity for him to repair the things that have been broken. From the checkups with Sasha, the quiet touches on her growing belly, the moments when their gazes meet without words, all of this is leading Michael to a profound realization that he cannot deny the connection that has formed between them. He starts appearing more often beside Sasha, no longer keeping his distance as before. The comforting words, the hugs full of hidden meanings, the hand-holding when no one is watching, all are shaping a new couple, a relationship reborn from the remnants of the past. Port Charles may not be ready to accept this, but between these two, love has never truly disappeared, it has only been lying dormant, waiting to be awakened. Willow, who was once Michael's wife, is now an unwilling witness to this change. She cannot deny that Michael's gaze towards Sasha has shifted, that the love she once had is being overshadowed by something larger. And this loss is pushing Willow to her breaking point, causing her to spiral into a crisis where she has lost a child, a husband, and now faces the risk of losing custody of Wiley and Amelia, the two children who are her only remaining support in her crumbling life. But for Michael, this moment is one of decision. Continue avoiding the truth and pretending to maintain a stable life, or bravely face the consequences of his true feelings. And it seems he has chosen the latter. By accepting Sasha, not as an accident or a burden, but as a new opportunity for a fresh start, Michael is reclaiming his position, not as the perfect man in the eyes of others, but as someone who dares to love, admit mistakes, and fight to hold on to what truly belongs to his heart. In the days ahead, Port Charles will have to get used to the new image of a couple newly redefined, Michael and Sasha, not as memories, but as a living present. And while public opinion continues to debate, the court continues to judge, and the family continues to fragment, perhaps it is in each other's arms that they will find the only balance they have lost for so long. A new family may be formed, not perfect, but real. And sometimes, that is the most solid foundation to start everything over again. Sasha, Michael, Wiley, Amelia, and the unborn child may soon form a small, close-knit, loving family, if the current unexpected developments in Port Charles continue to unfold. When the guardianship hearing ended with Michael's victory, everything seemed to fall into a new order, an order that made everyone reconsider their roles and positions in the battle, not just legally, but also morally and emotionally. This wasn't just the victory of a father fighting to protect his children, but also the victory of a man on a journey to heal the past and build a future with the woman who once made his heart race. The trial was over, but its aftershocks continued to spread like an unpredictable, simmering wave. One of the most apparent consequences was the formation of a new alliance between Michael and Sasha, not only because of the child she carried but also due to their realization that they could move forward together despite old wounds. Sasha, once filled with doubt and hurt, now found peace in Michael's embrace. He not only secured custody of the child but also won back her trust through patience, decisiveness, and honesty after everything. However, alongside that victory came a series of other consequences Michael had to face. One of the new pressures emerging was the public scrutiny. The disdain from certain family members, and the cold gaze of Willow, the woman who was once his wife, his support, his everything. She never expected that. In the moment she lost custody of Wiley and Amelia, she would also gradually lose her place in Michael's heart. What she was facing now was the biggest adjustment of her life, an adjustment not only in legal terms but also in emotions, roles, and her existence in a family she once believed nothing could break. Willow was no longer the one making decisions. Now, she had to watch Michael, who once swore to stand by her, begin to rebuild his life alongside Sasha, the woman who had once been a distant shadow in the past, now the most vibrant image in the present. This was becoming one of the sources of the new troubles that would continue for some time. Willow, who was usually gentle and forgiving, was now undergoing major psychological and emotional adjustments. She could no longer pretend to be strong while everything around her changed rapidly, from personal feelings to her role as a mother and the responsibilities she had believed would be hers for life. Her mental and emotional shifts were escalating, pushing her toward the brink of a decision that could explode at any moment. She could choose to remain silent, step back, and try to rediscover herself, or she could resist, seek the truth behind the current relationships, and even dig into secrets that had never been revealed. The choice she made would shape the future of not only herself but also Michael, Sasha, Wiley, Amelia, and the unborn child. Meanwhile, Michael continued to face a series of new calculations. A courtroom victory was never an endpoint, it was only the beginning of a long chain of responsibilities he had to bear. He could no longer live as a cold businessman or a busy father. He had to become the peacekeeper in his own home. He had to soothe Willow's pain, protect Sasha from the harsh public, and also prepare Wiley and Amelia, two children at an emotional crossroads, where love, stability, and trust were indispensable. This adjustment, from personal roles to family responsibilities, was what made everything more chaotic than ever. But in that chaos, there was still a chance for the characters to mature, heal, and rebuild what once seemed broken. Michael's small family, with Sasha, Wiley, Amelia, and the unborn child, could become a new symbol of hope amidst the ever-turbulent Port Charles. But only when they all found the courage to face the past, accept the present, and choose the future together, would that hope become a reality. One of the new adjustments rising in the midst of the turmoil in Port Charles, which led Jason Morgan to decide to end the role he had secretly played, was the task of pretending to be Sasha's child's father to protect her from legal pressures, judgments, and the risks of her dark past. But the truth, like an undercurrent, could not remain buried forever. As secrets began to be uncovered, and Michael no longer remained silent about being the real father of Sasha's child, Jason's role had to be redefined, not as the man protecting Sasha from behind the scenes but as a central figure in the coming emotional and legal storm. However, even though Jason officially gave up the pretense of being the legal father, deep down, a new obsession was rising within him, a nameless pain in having to let go of the child he once thought he would care for, protect, and raise as his own. Jason had never asked for much for himself, never allowed himself to dream of a real family, but the time he spent with Sasha, the emotional connection with the unborn child, had awakened something deeper than duty in him, a true desire to be a father, not just on paper, but with his whole heart. This shift in Jason's psyche was pushing him into a gray zone full of internal conflict. He knew the truth had to be respected, that Michael, his brother, the man who had fought alongside him, was the biological father. But logic couldn't quench the smoldering emotions burning within him. Jason had sacrificed much for others, but this time, what he was losing was not just a legal role, but the opportunity to be loved, to belong, to be a true father after years of living between blurred moral lines. Sasha, although knowing she couldn't continue the ruse, still saw in Jason's eyes a sadness that couldn't be hidden. She understood that between them, it wasn't just about the arrangement to fool the public, but a deep bond, and its unraveling was the inevitable consequence of the changes taking place. Now, between the three of them, Michael, Jason, and Sasha, was a triangle of conflict, where kinship, love, and responsibility collided, creating a new tension that no one was truly prepared to face. Michael, with his victory in the custody trial and the truth on his side, seemed to be the only one emerging from this chaos with a firm standing. But Jason's silent presence, the man no longer with a legal title but still emotionally bound, was casting a large shadow over the new life Michael was trying to build. Jason wasn't declaring war, resisting, or demanding anything. But his silence, and all he had done for Sasha, were making Michael feel threatened in an invisible way, not by power, but by unresolved emotions. the story wasn't over when one door closed. Jason ending his role only opened a new chapter, where everything that seemed settled began to shift. A new adjustment in roles, beliefs, and futures was rising, and in the moment that seemed like stepping back, Jason could begin a new journey, not as the protector of Sasha, but as a man seeking himself, facing his true feelings. And possibly, fighting to hold on to the chance to be a father, if his heart didn't let him give up too soon. Michael Corinthos, once seen as a symbol of calm, ethics, and responsibility in Port Charles, was now spiraling into a whirlwind like never before, as everything he had built was on the brink of complete collapse. The recent rapid developments, from the secrets about his relationship with Sasha being exposed to the revelation that Michael was the biological father of her child, had not only put him at odds with Willow and Drew, but also shaken his position in the custody battle for Wiley and Amelia to the core. In this tense legal environment, where every decision could trigger uncontrollable consequences, Michael had no choice but to act. And no longer in the subtle or cautious ways he had before. This time, Michael had truly changed. He was becoming proactive, decisive, unafraid to confront. Even willing to step into the hottest emotional and political front to reclaim what he believed was his right to be a father, to protect his children, and to be loved unconditionally. Michael had begun to rebuild his entire legal team, replacing inexperienced lawyers with top-notch litigation experts who had experience in high-stakes custody battles. He rented a separate law office to store all records related to Wiley and Amelia, including medical history, psychological profiles, care history, educational paths, and every piece of evidence showing he was the most suitable father. Each photo, each video, each family meeting was now part of the strategy in the fierce upcoming legal battle. Not stopping there, Michael also reached out to trusted journalists, those who had supported him in past community campaigns, to methodically rebuild his public image. His strategy wasn't just about the courtroom. It was about the power of public opinion. He understood that if Willow and Drew manipulated his image as an unethical father, especially after what had happened with Sasha, then even the law might not be on his side. But the pressure wasn't just coming from the outside, it was exploding within the Corinthos and Quartermain families. Carly feared her son was losing his inherent compassion. Sonny warned Michael that power, if unchecked, would make him lose the trust of those who loved him most. And then, no one other than Sasha, the woman who had once been hurt by Michael, stood at a crossroads. Unsure if she should continue collaborating or if she was becoming an emotional burden in his heated legal battle. What made things even crazier was the fact that Michael, instead of distancing himself from emotional complications, was diving deeper into his relationship with Sasha as an emotional choice. Despite the legal risks that could arise from them getting back together at such a sensitive time. Meanwhile, Willow and Drew were secretly forming a new alliance. With Drew now opposing Jason and Michael, and Willow increasingly led by her emotions rather than logic. The duo might present a strong case in court arguing that Wiley and Amelia's current living situation was unstable. They might expose Michael's relationship with Sasha as proof of immaturity, convincing the judge to award them temporary guardianship. This was something Michael had anticipated. And it was precisely why he was more determined than ever not to let anyone, whether family or foe, take his right to fatherhood away. And so, what was inevitable finally happened. In a hearing that attracted heavy media attention, where every small move was scrutinized, Michael stood up and declared to the court that he would not deny his connection to Sasha. That he was willing to take responsibility for the child she was carrying, and most importantly, he was ready to fight to the end to protect all three children, Wiley, Amelia, and the unborn child, from any forces trying to take them for personal gain. This was no longer the Michael that Port Charles knew. This was a new Michael, brave, tough, strategic, and bold. A man not only fighting for himself but for the innocent children caught in the storm of a family in turmoil. And in a town where secrets never rest. His actions were not only a show of courage but the beginning of an explosion, an earthquake in the legal, social, and emotional systems of Port Charles. Where a man was trying to hold on to the only definition of family that remained. Drew and Willow, after a long period of quietly preparing had finally emerged as a formidable force in the legal battle for custody of Wiley and Amelia. While Michael was caught up in personal scandals and uncontrollable emotions related to Sasha and the unborn child, Drew and Willow acted in a quiet, strategic, and calculated manner. The combination of Drew's sharp intellect and Willow's skillful manipulation of public emotions created an alliance that even Michael's closest allies had to admit was concerning. Drew and Willow's greatest advantage didn't just lie in their deep understanding of Michael, both his strengths and weaknesses, but also in how they had capitalized on the mistakes Michael had made. Michael's hesitation to publicly declare the biological father of Sasha's child, along with the increasing intimate images appearing between the two, had provided Drew and Willow with the opportunity to build a legal argument that Michael was emotionally compromised, mentally unstable, and living in an unstable environment. They didn't launch a direct attack but instead focused on small details to plant doubt in the judge's mind. From Michael's frequent changes of lawyers to signs that his children were showing instability in their daily lives. In recent hearings, Willow had excelled in her role as a calm mother, ready to heal and bring stability to her children. She presented concrete evidence that Wiley and Amelia had shown signs of anxiety, insomnia, and behavioral changes since Michael became embroiled in legal and emotional turmoil. With Drew's financial support and his behind-the-scenes power, the pair introduced a series of psychological experts, preschool teachers, caregivers, and neighbors, each providing testimony that reinforced the argument that Michael was not the optimal guardian at this time. And then the moment no one wanted to believe arrived. The judge issued a temporary ruling that the official custody would be awarded to Willow, the mother who had once nearly lost everything, now at the center of the family. For Michael, this was not just a legal defeat, but a direct blow to his heart. Wiley and Amelia, the two children he considered his very breath, were now placed under the control of the woman who had once been his wife, now a stranger with whom he no longer shared trust. The emotional eruption began immediately after the ruling. Michael fell into a state of extreme despair. Unable to believe that everything he had fought for over the years had been taken away in a cold courtroom afternoon. He felt betrayed by the entire world, from Willow, who had once vowed to raise their children with him, to Drew, who he had once considered family. The obsession with losing his children began to torment Michael, causing him to become disoriented, irritable, and unable to maintain his usual calm demeanor. Sasha tried to reassure him, but she, too, sensed that a crack was spreading between them, one that could not be mended, not because love was no longer there, but because Michael was no longer the man he once was. Worse still, in the eyes of the public and the media, Michael had officially entered dangerous territory. The headlines blared, "Young businessman loses custody amid love affair scandal," or "Ex-lover returns." "Family shattered, the tragedy of the Corinthos family." These headlines not only wounded Michael's self-esteem but also caused him to lose support from investors, business partners, and even those who had once trusted him implicitly. On the other hand, Willow began to craft an image of herself as a strong mother recovering from pain, steadfast and full of love. She held gentle press conferences, sharing her journey of fighting for her children and how she overcame the pain of losing Michael to become a better mother. Drew remained quietly behind the scenes, not appearing much but being the decisive factor in the success of both the media and legal campaigns. All of this only fueled Michael's growing obsession. He had not only lost his children but also lost his trust, his honor, and the stability that had once been the core of who he was. And while poor Charles might breathe a sigh of relief over a legal decision having been made, those who knew Michael best realized that a storm was brewing, the storm of a man cornered, with the pain of having everything he loved taken from him. The disaster was not something that was yet to come, it had already begun. And if Michael could not find a way to regain his balance, poor Charles would soon witness a collapse, not just of an individual, but of a family symbol once regarded as the pride of this town.